welcome to the diversity panel. As you know, the organizers of PyCon has put a lot of effort in ensuring diversity in this conference. But let's try to explore a little bit more why diversity is such a pressing issue that needs to be considered and what should be done towards this direction. So we have an amazing group of panelists here with us today in order to make sure that all voices are heard and all aspects of this issue are being taken into consideration. So let's just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about what you're working on and why do you think you should be in this panel? What is your relation to diversity?
All right. My name is Alicia. My name is.
Yes.
Hello. Developer from Zimbabwe, in Africa, for those who don't know where Zimbabwe is. I organize Jungle Girls events in Zimbabwe, as well as Pi Ladies and PyCon Zimbabwe. I'm in this panel first because I am a woman who is a developer, and then so many women in the programming field. I know you can argue with me on that, but if we check the ratio of women at this conference, you realize that there aren't so many women in programming. So I'm part of this panel partly because I am a woman programmer, as well as the fact that I'm also an African in Europe. So the diversity comes in me being here in Europe, being involved in a European continent, which is basically being a global community. So that's why I'm part of the panel. I am here representing women in programming, as well as representing African people in the open source community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Knowler, and I'm, first of all, I think I'm here because I'm non-binary. For people who don't know what that means, it means my gender is not male nor female. For me, it's somewhere in the middle, but lots of non-binary and trans people feel their genders in all kinds of different ways. So actually, I think, like Anna, I'm kind of here for multiple reasons. I code as female. People who see me assume that I'm female. So I'm also kind of underrepresented in that way, but also I'm transgender, and that brings its own sort of set of challenges, both in life and in technology. I live and work in Zurich, where a friend and I have been starting up a transcode series of hackathons. This is it's a set of events that was first started in the UK by a lady called Naomi Cedar, who's also on the board of the PSF. And we started doing the first ones in Switzerland. And I also help out with Django Girls, which is another awesome Python-focused diversity initiative. That's why I'm here.
My name is Marlene, and I am also from Zimbabwe, like Anna. And I'm here because I have an organization that's called ZimboPi. And what we do is we teach girls how to code in Python. And we basically, the target girls that we work with are girls that are from really disadvantaged backgrounds. So we work in high-density areas in Zimbabwe. So right now, we partnered with GitHub, and we have 2 community center clubs that we get laptops, and we bring in. We have about 30 girls, and these are teenage girls that we work with, and basically just get them excited about tech. A lot of the girls will have never actually touched a computer before, and A lot of girls who have never touched a computer before. So, like Anna said, there are more cell phones than there are actual computers that people usually have access to. So it really is a strange thing, but we really are seeing that the girls are really excited and they have a lot of opportunities there. So I think I'm representing more so gender girls that are in tech, and also maybe people that don't necessarily have the economic status to maybe ordinarily be in tech. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Lilly Ryan. I'm a software engineer from Australia, and I do a lot of work developing identity and access management systems for a consultancy. I also do a lot of work remotely, and that means that I work a lot with different people from different places all the time, because the company I work for is global, so we talk to people in lots of different countries and all different kinds of time zones, from all different kinds of backgrounds. And building an identity system for people from all over the world brings its own set of challenges, so that's been quite interesting. I think, as many of the other people on this panel have said, gender diversity and technology is an interesting issue to address, and I'm a woman, so being a woman who codes, that can be interesting sometimes. I'm also somebody who comes to programming from a background that is very non-programming-like. So I was a historian, and that was what I trained to do. So before I wrote any code, I was writing and reading Latin and all kinds of other things, and never thought that I would be doing this kind of work. So I found it very interesting to come to an industry where a lot of people are trained engineers and think like engineers, but also to bring my own perspectives and experience into that space, and to be somebody who comes from a background where issues are considered differently and concepts are talked about in different ways. Yeah.
Hey, so my name is Flavio Percoco. I work on a community, upstream community, open source community, in a project called OpenStack. And what brings me here, I believe, is the fact that the project, the community around this project is actually huge, and we've got people from many different cultures, time zones, and nations, and genders, and it's brought a lot of interesting topics to talk about within the community, and how we would build a community, how we'll make it grow, and how we can create an environment that is inclusive for everyone. Some of these things happened without we even actually acknowledging them or even being aware of them, until we said hey, well, turns out that we have people in Asia, we got to do something about it, or we'll lose them. And I'm very interested not only in the gender side of diversity, but also the cultural and geographic diversity, and all the benefits we can get from that, and how we can improve it.
I'm sorry I made the extraordinary interest of being late. I just had a call for a job that I've been waiting for 2 years for. I've been at it. It's a diversity coordinator for Tech Square Labs in Atlanta, Georgia, which is probably what is it? What do they call it? What did you tell me what it was, Fabio? We works. What is it like?
Co-working space.
Co-working space. Okay. See, this is my best friend right here. I'm Alicia Carr, and I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm director of Women of Code Atlanta, Georgia. I created a domestic violence app called Purple Pocketbook, which is now Purple Evolution. I am the first African-American self-taught mobile developer that created a domestic violence app for the state of Georgia. And so Apple acknowledged me twice, 2015 at the Worldwide Developers Conference, and on 2016 with the New Beginning video. So.
Okay. Thank you all for the introduction. So my first question is for Flavio. And you have worked in international teams, and I would like to know if you think that people are or should be aware of different cultures when they interact with others, both online and offline. So both at the online communities you are in, but also at conferences?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, assuming things when it comes to community and human interaction is probably one of the first mistakes we do, or we tend to do. And not acknowledging diverse cultures around the world actually hurts your project and your community in ways that you cannot imagine. Just to give an example, not everyone addresses problems the same way. There are cultures that are, because of how they've grown in their culture, they tend to address problems in a more direct way. Whereas there are other cultures that are more respectful, and they will try to address a problem in a way that doesn't involve direct communication and conflict with other people. Some people feel comfortable with just going on a IRC channel and say, I disagree with your code. Whereas other people say, your code looks good and, the idea is fine. And then you just go around until they can finally, not find the courage, but until they can finally tell you what they disagree with. And sometimes they won't say it. They would just go yeah, I agree with everything you've said. And then we'll just go offline and say well, it turns out there are some things that I don't agree with, but because of my culture, I don't feel, I'm empowered to communicate that to you. So the sooner we understand there are other cultures, the sooner we'll be able to actually create an environment where everyone is involved. And this includes language. Not everyone is a native English speaker, right? I'm not a native English speaker. And you gotta understand that, as a native English speaker, and I'm not trying to pick on native English because it can happen in any language, right? So if someone is not native in your language, you have to understand that whatever you say, it might take the other person some extra time to actually process it and get back to you. And probably the answer is not going to be completely understandable. So, how much time are you going to spend trying to understand what this person is trying to say, And there comes other, the flip side. There's a part where, as a non-native English speaker, sometimes I try to, I express myself and, it is very common to get your words twisted. Because did you try to say this, or were you trying to say this other thing? And you're like, no, I was very direct. This is perfect English. I know what I'm saying. Don't try to twist my words. There's all sort of different problems that come from cultures and language and all that. Yeah, I absolutely yes. You have to acknowledge different cultures.
Okay. Anna, do you think that Africa has been enough included in the tech community, or do you think that as a culture and as a geographical location, it has been kind of isolated?
Okay, I think for a long time, Africa has been isolated in the tech community. Even if we were to look at the statistics of at conference attendees in conference like DjangoCon Europe, DjangoCon USA, you would find that there will be more attendees from Australia, Asia, than Europe, America, than there would be Africans, irrespective of whether the conference has taken place in the US or in Europe. We were fortunate enough for us to be part of this conference as well as DjangoCon Europe. But if we look at the number of African attendees at both conferences, you realize that Africa still has been left out in the tech community. And this is also made worse by the fact that what seems to be an affordable conference ticket rate is not so affordable to most African people. I could give an example like the PyCon Italia dinner, which costs €50 per meal. It's just one meal. But in Africa, if you are to have a tech conference that is charged a ticket for €50 for 2 or 3 days, somebody might actually fail to afford that conference ticket. So if it's a global conference like this one, like DjangoCon Europe or DjangoCon US, the financial assistance also that is being given to Africans, it doesn't take note of that difference in income levels. Such that the same as financial assistance that you might give to Raya, it will not be adequate for me, because Raya is in a different job where she's paid well enough I'm coming from a continent where developers aren't so paid well. So I cannot afford to pay the difference. So the same financial assistance level that you give us, for me, it will not be adequate to cover my costs. So that also limits the number of African attendees in global conferences. Then the other thing is, if we were to hold an event in Africa, most of you just come without processing a visa. You can just come as a tourist in most of the African countries. But for us to come here, we have to process visa, and there are also costs that are associated with the visa. If you want to process a business visa, it's entirely up to you. But for me, I cannot just board a plane to say I'm going to Italy without applying for a visa. And there are so many costs and so many requirements that I'm expected to meet for me to get that visa to get here. So all those, I feel Africa has been excluded because nobody has taken the time to look at what would be required for an African person to get to this conference. And the ticket rates that are being charged, all those costs, they haven't been taken note of. Even how much it costs per night for somebody to stay here is different with the rest that are charged in Africa. So it makes it difficult for Africans to be present at conferences like this. And also, I think a lot has to be done to ensure, it's not that there are no developers in Africa or there are no programmers in Africa, but I think for a long time, issues pertaining to African developers have not been taken care of in the international community. So as much as I appreciate being here, I think a lot still has to be done to include Africa and to get them together with the rest of the continents in terms of being involved in the technology community. Thank you.
So this is probably related also to the multicultural mindset that Flavio mentioned. So even when you organize a conference, you should have in mind the differences that people from other countries might have and the specific challenges they might face. So in order to enhance underrepresented groups in technology, it is a common practice to implement affirmative actions, or let's say quotas. Alice, do you think that the quotas in diversity, that quotas can help diversity? Because I think it's kind of a contradictory area.
That is a very, very difficult question to ask because if you the honest question, I'm going to be truthful and real with this. I would love a quota. Mm-hmm. Give me it. Don't give me it. No, without a doubt, I think quotas are like amazing, and there's companies doing it. Like Intel is doing a quota within their own company, which is they have to interview and hire a certain amount of people, women, for example, or minorities, and if they don't, it will affect their bonus. Okay, so we're looking at like companies really considering that, but there was also when I was in Australia, talked to a CTO where they implemented a program within their country and went to the government and asked them to allow them to create this program so they wouldn't get sued for discrimination or creating a quota, where they're allowed to create jobs for women. So what they did was had a program. The women applied, 130 women applied, had no experience in computer, in coding and technology, hired 3 women and actually taught them from nothing to become software engineers. So in some cases, if a quota does happen to create a quota, it will have to be done within a company. You know, so in the United States, with Women of Code, there's people who are actually will hire women. Like we did a hackathon, over 100 women. A lot of them had no experience in hackathon. Out of those 100 women, 15 women got hired at companies. So we used the hackathon as a way for companies to come in to see the talents of the women. We created like a Dropbox, have all the women put their resumes in there. And from there, the companies were able to look at the resumes, interview them, and test them. So we found a way we created something to allow companies to come in to hire women without having to do a quota. So, and it don't look like they're doing a quota. But the requirements of the hackathon is no men could be in the hackathon. They could be mentors, because men are excellent. They could help them with the projects that they're doing. But we wouldn't allow men to be mentors. So, yeah, there are ways. Like I said, for me, for real, if it was just me, hell yeah, I would go ahead and do a quota. But we're talking about a world that's never going to happen. So there's ways that we can do and make it to work around it. And I think that us, women doing hackathons, we're asking companies to sponsor the hackathon. We charge like $500 to $1,000 a table, and then we allow them to look at all the resumes for them to hire women. That's just another way of getting women into technology.
Of course. And just like you said, male advocates are also very important.
I had a bad experience with a mentor. Mm-hmm. So when I decided that I wanted to be an iOS developer, they didn't have a lot of schools there or resources there. So I reached out to a meetup group, an all-male meetup group. Well, it wasn't all-male, but you could say it was majority male, 80, 90% male, iOS developers group. I reached out to them. Several guys said they would mentor me. One guy, I said, definitely you could help me. But he was so verbally abusive, because of the fact that he felt that if I tell you what to do, you need to do it, and I'm not hurting you. But the fact was that I told him, but you're dealing with women. And women have a different kind of emotion, and we deal with things differently. So when you basically come abusive to me, I'm going to take it personal as a woman. And so, but there are so many other men out there. I met another guy, he works for Auto Trader. I don't know if you heard of that, but Auto Trader. And he actually mentors 3 women. He starts them from the low and trains them to be software developers and then help them find jobs. So there are so many, me having that one bad experience, but meeting so many other men who understands that there are issues in the tech community and are doing something instead of nothing to make a change. So it's one of those things that I love Women of Code, because I meet with so many different people, and I'm seeing, the men that we meet who are so want us to be, that the women in code are amazing. They are doing, it's not a lot of them, but those who are really making their mark to help women.
Can I add something? I just wanted to add something to what you said about that bad experience. So I think like the bad mentor you had, he not only didn't acknowledge that women or different genders might address problems or react differently to some ways of communication or ways for learning, but he didn't also acknowledge that this also happens in different cultures. And again, just like trying to just give it like a broader view of the problem is in, the way you teach, the way you mentor people, the more neutral you can be, the better, right? Because not everyone reacts the same way. I take everything personally. Like, no problem to say that. If you treat me bad, it's like you're dead to me, and so as different cultures, different people react differently to every event in their lives. And one thing that I really like to remind people about is we are humans. We have emotions, and sure, you can say as much as you want that you're thick-skinned and people, things don't get to you. And I'll always reply that's bullshit, because we all have emotions. You just probably go and cry in your room, whereas I just tell it to you right in your face, right? So it's we all have emotions. We all suffer from the same things, and we react to stuff differently. But you gotta acknowledge that as well.
Thank you, Marlene. You have also established an organization targeted to girls. Yeah. Did you face any challenges in your local community when trying to explain why this organization is focusing on girls?
Yeah, definitely whenever we go into a community, we, the parents are obviously, saying that why isn't this, why aren't boys allowed as well in the club and things like that. And usually actually, specifically I think in Africa, well, I'll say Zimbabwe because Africa is big and different. But specifically in Zimbabwe, we have a culture where men are expected to be the breadwinners of the family. And so the families that the boys grow up in will want the boys to have more opportunities than the girls. And so they will specifically give the boys better opportunities, than girls. And so a lot of the families get upset when, it's just girls that are getting these opportunities. But, we usually explain to them that, companies are looking to get more girls involved in technology, and we know that girls have the same capabilities. Alice was actually saying that GitHub did a survey or something like that, and they found that girls code, like women code better.
What it is that GitHub, everybody knows that GitHub is an open source website, and what happened was they actually did a survey and check all the code without the gender on it, and they found that women were actually better coders. And I mean, I'm not saying, and the thing is that, and this is where, when I mentioned this at another conference, men laughed, and the thing is it's hard. I don't, to me, I don't care. Go ahead and laugh. So you want to laugh? All right, fine. But the thing is that it's real. It's true. We women think differently. We do. We are more common sense. I'm not disrespectful. It's just common sense to us. I mean, there's plenty of times my husband will ask me something, and then I would make it more. To me, if he thinks complex, I think a little bit simpler. And I'm like, okay, this is much easier. So a lot of, in the tech community, is the excuse is that we're not smart enough. We take a little bit, we take too much time. We off work. And then using that as an excuse for us not to be considered for a lot of positions. So when you talk about little girls getting into technology, same issue in the United States. It's going to always be an issue overall because, again, it's not just, this is just me. It's not. I don't see it as color. I see it as the fact that a lot of in our society, which is a lot men, feel that little girls should be little girls. They shouldn't be flying a rocket or racing a car or or writing code. And the same situation in the United States where you see a lot of girl organizations there, and the excuse is that, I had somebody ask me the same thing. They contact me, well, do you know of any boy coding school? I'm like, listen, seriously, I'm not thinking about boys right now. My concern are women and girls. So yeah, I see that a lot amongst all cultures in all countries where they feel that girls are not important. When they have a boy, they want to say, well, my boy is just as important as a girl. But at this point, the statistics have shown that women and young girls are not interested in technology because they're told that they're not smart enough to do science or math. And I heard women said, why are you here? And young girls are saying, being asked, why are you here? And that's in school. So again, that's where, we have the issue at.
I think that's one half of the issue as well. To overcome the barriers that are put in front of women in particular getting into this type of industry, is there's a huge amount of them. And once we've done that, the next issue is how do you get people to stay when attitudes like this persist in the workplace as well? How do we confront those to make sure that once we've gotten somebody in, once we've gotten somebody in, how do we make a place for them where they feel welcome and involved? This is something I'm quite interested in helping.
Now, when we come to that issue, okay, I've talked to so many women who have been in there. In fact, one woman actually was a software engineer, and for her to prove herself as good as them, she shaved her head off. She shaved her hair off. And so what I would have done is I still help women get jobs, but I also tell women they need to make their own. They really do. You're going to get out of technology, but then stay in technology. Start a business. Hire your own. Create an app. Create some software. Create some machine learning. We got Amazon Echo Dot, and we have Google Home. There's just so many, like, for example, you have so many devices that's being created to work with these other devices. This is the new thing with technology, AI, machine learning. There's just so much. And so when I talk to women, because I'm the perfect example of what happens when somebody tells you how good you are, but yet they don't want to hire you. I'm being told, Apple's telling me I am an iOS developer. Apple's telling me I create this app, and, being acknowledged in the tech community, and then try to go out there and get a job when, the thing is that I'm taking this, these tech questions, these tech tests to get a job, and I can't pass them. But that's because of my life is more important than a whiteboard and a tech exam. You know what I'm saying? I know I have family, I have children, I have grandchildren, I have women to support. So if I'm a married woman who have to get her life together, that is not gonna be my priority. Saying my priority would be my family, and if I pass the test, so be it. If I don't, well, and don't get me wrong, I really wanted to be that iOS developer, and I cried plenty of times until I realized it's not worth it, and that there was other things that I can do, which I'm still doing in tech community. So as a single woman, I have a better chance of getting a job if I'm younger. But then the challenge is how am I being treated once I get the job? Because as a younger woman, you're considered a secretary or a runner girl. Go get me some coffee. As an older woman, as me, I'm being asked, you really know tech? Do you have that knowledge in tech? And I put them to shame, because I basically tell them, excuse me, but not only do I have at least 4 apps in the App Store. Yeah, they're stickers, but they count, And I tell them, I know more than you do, So if I could find a time to learn Objective-C and Swift, and also put things in the iTunes store, as well as I know everything about home automation, which is AI, machine learning. So I'm not stupid. Yeah, I know about Tesla. Yeah, I know everything. I took my granddaughter to go test a car. What the hell? So they make me, at the age of 54, they make it seem that I'm stupid. And I'm not. And then across the board, it's not just, and I'm thinking it's just me, but across the board, it's all women of all ages.
Thank you. A couple of things that you both said really resonated with me, thinking about trans experiences in tech. So thanks. Both the question of once people are in the industry, how do we keep them in the industry? And also the question of really being judged by things apart from your ability. I have an acquaintance who is looking for a job. She's a trans lady. And she recently had the experience that she did a technical interview for Microsoft and did a coding exam thing and got all the right answers, and they still told her, oh, we need someone with different experience. And she has a lot of experience and she has technical capability, but it's, she keeps getting rejected, and a lot of people I know are suffering from that, just like with your experience. And there's also something that maybe is slightly different, but that I thought of while you two were talking. trans people, quite often, you go through life presenting as cisgender, as the gender that you were assigned at birth. And then some point in your life, people are transitioning earlier now, which is good. But, maybe you're 20, 30, or 40 or something, and you suddenly realize, hey, I can't do this anymore. I have to transition. I have to be a guy. I have to be a woman. I have to be non-binary, like be out as non-binary, who I am. And quite often, a lot of people get that experience that, they come out as themselves, they start to transition, and all of a sudden they find a lot of doors begin closing to them. Just either because of something overt, like being fired, or just because they find that people look at them differently. And this is something where I really wish there was more education about what trans people are really like in society in general. Because I think it's one of these things where it's been shown that, if you know someone who's trans, you suddenly realize, oh, hey, they're actually just a person like me. They want the same things, But people who don't know trans people in their lives have really weird preconceptions of them. And so if, like, a trans guy or a trans lady comes to your interview, you have this preconception just clouding your vision of what's in front of you. And that's really an issue.
Education is definitely important in order to address all these kind of issues. So Lilly, you started out as a historian. So coming from a totally different background, what do you think could be done so that tech can be more inclusive and more welcoming to beginners?
Oh, that's a big question.
How much time do you have?
Yeah. I think that a lot of what prevented me actually from seeking formal education in technology was a lot of the preconceptions that I had about myself, and a lot of that had to do with gender roles that sort of society has and that I had absorbed, I suppose, and never questioned. Things, like, I'm not very good at mathematics, I'm not very good at science, so I'm not going to study those things or not pursue them any further than I have to. I'm good at languages and I'm good at reading and writing, so I'll do those things. And I'll do things that go with those things. And for me, having those sorts of things in my mind meant that I never really considered the fact that to be a programmer, you don't have to have a math PhD. You have to be a good logical thinker. You have to be able to follow a chain of reasoning. And once I realized, there was a particular moment, I don't know, I was reading a book and they had a mathematical equation and then they had an expression of the same equation, but they'd written it as a few sentences. And I realized that when they wrote it as a few sentences, I thought, okay, yeah, this makes total sense. And it was the same problem. And that was sort of the moment that the penny dropped for me. And I think that part of, going back to what you're asking me, part of what helps people is to dismantle the patriarchy. Part of what helps people is to help them question their own perceptions of themselves earlier and earlier. It's a very hard thing to do, particularly as you get older and these things set in and you think, oh, I've always been this way, I must go on this way. It takes a lot to change that thinking, and it's very hard and it's very confronting, but the earlier we do it and the earlier that we start to have these conversations with people, like what you're trying to do, getting young people involved, it's always really helpful to start as early as possible to make sure that people don't close these doors on themselves and have a difficult time opening them later. But also the focus on adult education is quite important, because for those of us who didn't get those opportunities when we were children, we need to get them at some point. And it doesn't matter how old we are, we can still do it. So providing avenues for both can be quite important, and providing supporting avenues.
Thank you. So I think our time is over. So now the stage is yours, actually. It's time for questions.
Thank you all for sharing your experiences. And I did have a question. Can anybody share some experience you've had where diversity in your team or group helped improve the project or the thing that you were working on?
So my example, the example that comes to mind is probably not like extreme. It didn't flip the project like 180 degrees, but the fact that we have different cultures in the OpenStack community, it helps even organizing the project itself. Some people feel more comfortable working in some areas of the project. Some other people, like doing more like bug triage. Some other people just don't like fixing bugs, which is fine. So. Whenever we have like problems with projects, you can see the different cultures in action. Like there's this CV coming up, and we gotta fix it. It's pretty urgent, and then you see like a whole bunch of trying not to mention culture specifically to call them out specifically, but you see all these people from these specific cultures, and they will just like. We'll put like 100 people there, and we'll just fix it in 1 hour. And then you see people from other cultures say like, well, why don't we just talk about it a little bit more? Like we probably want to think this through. We don't want to implement something that's, it's not the right fix for stuff. So you see them interacting, and you're like, aha. So you know why that is happening. I believe that is beneficial because eventually you'll find some way, you'll find a way in between. Like you'll find common ground, which is probably the right solution, the right answer to the problem.
All right, mine is not an experience in a programming problem, but I'm organizing PyCon Zimbabwe. I started out as the only woman in the organizing team. And what Alicia has been saying, when you're organizing events, there are certain things that men find difficult to cope with, that for us women, it's actually common sense, even how to, if you face a challenge, how do you go about it and to make the community grow? And I'm not bragging, but my presence in the community, working with almost all men, now I have a few ladies who have joined on board, has actually made an impact to grow the community in Zimbabwe. And I believe the way we think naturally as women, logic, if we are given a chance to use that even in programming, you'll find that we can contribute more. Because women are naturally, we are logic thinkers than men, I think. We quickly adjust to, okay, if this doesn't work, then we should. So I think conditional statements won't be a problem for us as women. So I believe we can contribute to programming. Thank you.
Thank you. So one thing I do is running a Coder Dojo organization in my hometown. And what I noticed there is that when the kids come into the Coder Dojo, which is basically coding club for kids, we have a lot of little girls, like 10, 12, 13. Really, actually, we have more girls than males very often. This is a very common pattern. But if we look at 14, 15, 16, we don't have girls anymore. So the question to you is why? I mean, if they come until 13 or until 12, why don't we keep getting girls later on? Because their parents are taking them to the dojos. So these are not parents which are probably just helping the male in the family. They are sending their girls, but then they don't come anymore. So probably they go to different schools. They don't go to technical schools, high schools, I don't know. So I've been wondering for 4 years why this happened. I don't have an explanation. So help me out.
The first question I'm going to ask you is, when the girls first come there, they've been there and they continue to come, correct?
Yeah, they keep coming.
Okay, so when they get to a certain age, they stop coming. Do you think that the boys are maybe teasing them or making them feel uncomfortable to come? That's one thing I wanted to ask you.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Actually, I often find the girls are helping the guys, the males, out. So it's
Maybe they're getting bored.
maybe they get bored.
Yeah, maybe there's something that you... Okay, so girls. Okay, so I'm going to give you something that some men don't know about. Women, girls use social media more than anything. We shopped more than anything on our mobile apps, on anything with technology, or we're looking at. We're following big stars on social media. Young girls use Snapchat more than boys. So you have to find something that's going to keep them coming, that has associated to anything that they're interested in. Okay? So, for example, this commercial, because this commercial is like awesome. Audi got this commercial with the little girl with the boxcar. Have you seen it? Yeah. It was one of the best damn commercials out there. Girl is driving that boxcar. This little fat boy tried to hit her on the side. She like, and he swerved over on the other side, and she kept on moving, and she won the boxcar. And then it was all about the pay gap. But they found something interesting for his daughter. So you have to figure out what the girls are interested in to keep them coming. So it can't be the same thing they're doing. So girls ain't interested probably in some girls may be interested in soccer, because here it's football. I'm going to say football. Americans say soccer, whatever. Yeah. But boys, are interested in sports. Girls may be interested in design. They may be interested in a voice activation. They may be interested in machine learning. So try to change it up. And I think that will probably work.
Yeah. Sorry. If you want to add this. Oh, you can go in. Okay. One thing I wanted to add to that was you're saying sort of about 13, 14, they stop coming. Do you remember how much being a teenager sucks?
Being a teenager has a role in
yeah. I think that for a lot of people, becoming a teenager is often when you start to feel a lot of society pressure, more than you did when you were a kid. You start to notice it more. And sometimes you just don't want to do what you did when you were a kid anymore. It's not cool. Just because it was the thing you did, not because you're disinterested, but you want to do something else. You try on different personalities. You try figuring out who you are. And I think that a lot of what Alicia said is really important about making it relevant to changing interests, but also to try to acknowledge that they're starting a different phase of their lives. They're trying a whole bunch of different things. It's going to be a difficult time for everybody. And different approaches are going to be needed from when they were 6, 7, 8. Not like the coding programs have to be harder or anything like that, but just the way you approach problems generally has to change as they do.
I'd also like to say, because for my program, we deal with girls that are 13 to about 18 years old. And so for us, we've noticed that if you create also a community, so a sisterhood is what we try to do, and create sort of markers along the way that can motivate the girls as they go along. So we have things that we do. So every couple weeks or once a month or something like that, we do events that we take the girls out, and we also have like once a week someone comes in and talks to the girls about self-esteem issues. That really is a time where society puts a lot of pressure on girls, and the society has not. I was talking with at the university. We work with the University of Zimbabwe sometimes, and they work with women in engineering. And the engineering department was saying that a lot of the times girls will come into engineering because that's the only thing they were given as a course, and they will drop out in second year or something like that because their parents or their friends are saying that, oh, you do engineering, no one's going to marry an engineer, Yeah, and the problem is because we live in a society that's telling girls that your main focus should be marriage, right? And so if the girls are not in a community where they're safe to, and they know that, it's okay. Marriage is not your first priority. It doesn't have to be your first priority, or that you can be. Girls need to also see examples of other girls that are, or women that are doing well in tech fields, and that maybe also have a family, that you can show that you can code and also have a family. It's possible, and so for us, we really try and motivate the girls with sisterhood. So making sure we have like events or competitions and stuff like that can motivate them, and then also then once a week to really check in and see how are you doing, what are you facing, self-esteem issues, are you okay, how can we help you improve your self-esteem, or how can we help you feel safer in the space that we're creating. So I think those are important things. Yeah.
One last question. Okay, so
I just wanted to add to what Marlene was saying, that when girls are teenagers, I think that's where they are thinking about the career that they would want to do. And I don't know about you, but where I come from, society has jobs which they encourage people more to do. And the science field, normally, it's not, girls are not so encouraged in that, but when they do, they are pushed more towards the medical field than programming. So probably that's something that you might need to address to those girls to ensure that even girls can be in the programming field and the engineering field. Because that's a challenge that I faced. I did, for my A-level studies, I did maths, physics, and computing. But my parents would have preferred that I had taken chemistry in place of computing so that I could be a medical doctor. So it's something that society might actually be doing unconsciously, because they don't see so many female programmers. All they see are male programmers. You are teaching them, you are a man, probably. You might want to check also the staff that you have running with you, the club. So if they're all men programmers, when she's a little girl, probably she doesn't mind. But then when she becomes a teenager, she becomes aware that I am a woman. One thing that I get so conscious of when I get to a conference is how many women are there, because I am a woman. And it's difficult for me to just walk around and start talking to men. So she's looking around probably and seeing that they are all men. And she's looking at herself in the next maybe 5-10 years, being alone and being the only woman there without any other sisterhood to support her. And I think that could be the reason why girls are dropping out when they become teenagers, because they become more familiar with their femininity, and they're also looking around to see any female role models, and all they see are men, and then they think, actually, this should be an industry for men and not for women, and then they drop out.
I want to ask, where are the limits of helping women? Don't get me wrong, I'm an organizer of the Women in Technology community in Warsaw, and I organize meetups, hackathons, many workshops, but as an IT student, I can say that me and, for example, my flatmate have much easier. For example, to get an internship at Google or an Intel, and our male friends can sit and they are frustrated, and I can even understand that. I'm a bit afraid that it's a kind of message that women aren't able to compete with men. I just wanted to ask, what do you think about it? Where are the limits when we help and when we do harm to the community?
So you think that women are harming the community?
No, that some initiatives are just too much.
So you're saying that?
I'm just wondering.
So you're saying that women, is there a competition between men and women in the tech community? And may that be you think that may be an issue?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, there is no competition. The numbers for corporate America, as far as raising the number of diversity, of minorities, of women, not just white women, black women, Asian women, we're talking just minority across the board, it's very low. In the past year, when diversity inclusive became an issue, only 1% of minorities have been hired in over a year. So are we in competition? No. Men get hired faster than us. And I could, for a fact, I am an iOS developer. I have been an iOS developer and I can count, and I'm adding the years that I learned it, because I knew it, but I didn't trust myself to believe I did it. So I've been an iOS developer, so I say 3 years. I went and applied for a job. I emailed my resume to one company in 2014, about April or May. And they told me, when I said they had a job, they said they were looking for somebody, and they told me they wasn't interested. So it's easy to find a person on the internet. All they have to do is type my name in. I'm out there, okay? Then you have the situation where I am interviewing for a junior developer. There's a guy that helped me with my app who's also working with the company as a junior developer. And so for him to get the job, he didn't do well on the test. He told me he didn't, but he told them, I can do the job. Give me the opportunity and I'll prove it. Okay, same company. They interview me, junior developer. I'll say 6 months, a year later. I told them the same thing. Didn't do too well on the test. But you know what they told me? No. Big difference. So and again, we're talking about in the United States. So I have interviewed with a lot of companies, big companies, that the guys, people who interviewed me knew who I was. I was in the community, and they all would not give me the job.
Oh, you probably had a boyfriend help. Seriously, I've seen this response.
So the thing is that the opportunity for women to grow and to get into technology varies in places you are in the world. In the United States, it's very thin, very thin. So, no, there's no fairness in men and women getting the job.
This conversation is very interesting, and I am pretty sure that we could just stay until the night and keep on talking about it, but we have to end the panel. So thank you very much for your contributions, both the panelists and the audience. You can find all the speakers afterwards, and I'm pretty sure you will have many questions for all of them.